Hello, everyone. Welcome to
Y-ZUP.
Y-ZUP. My name is Maureen, and
Chris.
so we're welcoming you to this little show of ours. And we hope you have a great time listening to some of the conversations and topics we have for you. And hopefully, you can join in as well, like put your comments and like and share. That would be absolutely brilliant. We covered last time motherhood. My sister always has to remind me because I get it totally mixed up and say something different. So yeah, we covered motherhood the last time,
Right.
and we spoke about
Things like stereotypical of what motherhood is,
yes,
and also how they treat boys to girls, the
daughters,
difference
yeah.
to daughters.
We talked about child rearing as well, and
Child-
the different kind of how different races have done that.
That's right,
as well.
and also maybe cultural, didn't we? We talked about
That's
cultural
right.
because so those are a few of the things that we
Yeah.
actually covered.
Yes.
Yeah.
So today, though, we're doing something slightly different, and as we said, it's called womanhood.
Womanhood. See, you was about to say motherhood, weren't you?
Yes. I'm sorry, I have to laugh because I have a mental block, and then I'm just saying, "Don't say that word, don't say that word, don't say that word," and guess what? I say the word. So
It's womanhood.
so it's womanhood, yes. And we will be put it into categories.
We did. First of all, we looked at the definition of what womanhood was,
Yeah.
and what we came up with. Because different things told you different things.
Yeah.
But womanhood, it said it was biological, so it's how you're born, and with
Your reproductive organs.
that's right.
Yeah.
So that's what they define womanhood as, didn't they?
That's right. Yeah.
And so also from there, we looked at other areas of womanhood, which is puberty,
Yes.
adolescent,
Yeah. Adulthood, being an adult and aging. So we thought we'd look at those, separate those topics and talk about them individually, and hopefully get your kind of introspection and feedback on that as well. You know,
so whether you come up with the same thing, what we think.
Yeah. We like a discussion. So we spoke about we'll stick with puberty for now. And I remember you wanted to ask me a question. What was the question you want to ask me?
I
sis?
asked you, can you remember any time back from your puberty age?
I do. And as you can see, the grimace on my face. Yeah. I remember growing up into puberty, and for me, actually, I started my puberty when I went to Jamaica for a while, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
And I was a buxom lass, as they say, and that created problems. Well, I won't say Chesty Morgan. Not too good. But yeah, well developed, and I suppose it was hard as well because people would they, they wouldn't talk to your face. They'd be looking down, and being young as well, you're very conscious of that. And running for buses and all that kind of stuff, it was hard. Puberty was hard, and just your confidence in yourself, all those things, I think, struggled for me.
Well, we looked at a few areas, didn't we, to do with puberty here, and we come up with that when people young ladies, sorry, are going through puberty, you find there's so many changes, don't they? Like hormone changes, so they have mood swings. Also, that they seem to cut themselves off away from family, where they probably sit in their own room, things like that. Because I remember being at work, and I was in the lift going up in the lift with one of the colleague, and I heard her talking to other person in the lift saying about her daughter, and she was around this age, because I think, what did we say puberty age was, Maureen? Can you remember?
Oh gosh, I think it was about. I think for some people it's about 10 upwards, wasn't it? I think.
Was it 10 upwards?
I think it was. Yeah.
Well, something like. Well, her daughter was a bit older than 10. She probably was like at secondary school, so she might have been about 12. And she was saying that you know, she doesn't understand her. She has all these mood swings now, and all she does, she goes upstairs and she sits in her room. She's cuts herself off from them. They can't have any conversation, you know, with them. And if she wants to speak to her, she'll probably get on her phone and ring her from downstairs. But most time they're probably up there talking to their friends. So she said, I don't understand her. So I don't know whether anybody else out there that's have experienced thing that like that with their children, which are going through puberty, where they have these mood swings and where they shut themselves off and they don't really include their parents as such.
I suppose it is a hard time as well, because I remember, you know, when you're going through those changes and you're going through your menstrual cycle, or the first time. I remember, as I said, I was in Jamaica for a while. I wasn't born there, but I went there for a while. I went to school there, and I remember there was one girl who came on her menstrual cycle early, and I was just thinking, what's happening to her, you know? But I remember my mum never told me about those things till much later on. Do you know what I mean? It was really strange, you know.
But don't you think it's a big thing, like you find, because I can remember time back when we were at school, and we were probably going through puberty as well at that stage growing up, and leaving, was it junior school, going into secondary school, and you find some girls already started their period before they actually got to secondary school, and you were thinking, what's wrong with me? You know, and you find that they'll be thinking, I'm a woman now. I think it's that concept of that change that they start to see themselves as women because they've got their period. And I remember personally for my own self that didn't happen to me till probably I was about 13. So I was thinking, is there something wrong with me? Because everyone's going on to school. Have you started your? It was like a big thing. It was like a big thing.
You're a woman now.
Yeah, because they felt different and they felt like there was a woman. So it's funny.
Because I remember something as well, like being, you know, when I did finally come on, one of the conversations my mum had was, no, when you go on that bus, don't talk to nobody and make your face look screw up your face. That's what my mum said. Because, you know, you could get pregnant. I'm thinking, how does that work out? You got to screw up your face on, you know.
Well, that's a cultural thing, though, isn't it? Right. Okay. So you were saying.
Yes. So yeah, puberty, interesting time.
It is an interesting time because I can remember, like they're saying, puberty is a very sensitive age for young girls, isn't it?
Yeah. And
they normally say you have to be very, very careful what you say to young people or, you know, general girls when they're going through puberty, because the way they feel about themselves, isn't it? Their bodies are changing, and you find that they tend to look in the mirror quite a lot. And I remember, and this is a cultural thing, I don't know, because I think with us as Caribbean people, our family is so different. Because I used to think my English friends, their parents spoke to them a lot more, and they never felt it was a big thing to sort of, you know, be changing and growing up and having breasts and changing. But with our parents, it's as if, you know, they took that and made a big thing out of it, where, you know, your mum might call you and she's looking at you, and because you've done something wrong, she's going to use those things to say, because you're turning a woman and you see yourself, you're getting little breasts. And so, therefore, when they call you, no, you're going to get to off. You used to put your hands like this. Do you remember? You used to put your hands like this, because you know that they're going to start using those things to demean you. And that's the experience I can remember as puberty, which really, you know, it's not really a good thing, because then you can't feel good about your own body. That's right. Of feeling comfortable, you know, and other things, you're getting little hairs underneath your arms, and they used to curse you about that, where you probably find it's not an English thing, where they'll just grow into who they are. So it was, for us, a bit embarrassing, and it should never have been that way. The experience should have been something that's wonderful, and knowing that you're changing into this into a woman, and you should feel good about yourself. But I know personally that I didn't feel good about myself. I don't know whether you had that from mum, because I know you were born here.
I was born here, yeah.
And did you get that from mum?
I think I did get looked at like that as well, and things were said like that.
Yeah.
You know.
Has anybody else out there who are Caribbean, from the Caribbean, that, you know, their parents use those things to you know, demeanor them in a way, instead of telling them off, they use those things to demeanor them,
or put you under manners.
Yeah, put you on the manners. Yeah. And how do you feel about it now? Did it leave sort of any impact in your life, you know, where it makes you think in a different way about being a woman? Because sometimes those things can have its impact, I think. And I know other things as well, that, as I was saying, that with young women growing up, we have to be careful what we actually say to them, because they said it's a time where they're very sensitive, and they can take things to heart, can't they? Where a bit like, I remember with mum, she used to say things like, you know, about my nose. She says, "Oh, your nose looked like your dad." And mum always had this thing about having a straight nose, didn't she? Because she had a straight nose, our mum. And she used to always saying, "You must do this to your nose.
Oh, yes.
You must do this to your nose, you know." And but you know, I think it's probably something that they learned, that they might have taught them, because I'm sure in Britain years ago they used to tell them to put pegs on their nose as well. I think so, you know, so their nose is small. So it might be coming from somewhere like that. And I always thought to myself, every time I looked in the mirror, all I could see was my nose. I saw nothing else. So I'm saying we have to be careful what we say to.
Because words are powerful.
That's right. And at that delicate age, as I said, they're very, very sensitive when they're developing. And she used to say things like, so when I used to look at my nose, all I saw in the mirror was my nose, and I didn't smile because I hated smiling. When I smile, it's as if my nose is spread across my face. So that was. But and I vowed that when I grew up, I was going to have a nose job. I was going to have, so I can understand about Michael Jackson, actually, you know, because because I dare say that he had that type of thing at a very, very tender age, like that, when he was told about his nose and various different things. So you carry those things with you. But look at me, thank God, I didn't do that. I don't know, probably by the grace of God.
You still got time.
I grew out of that. And I don't know about yourself, but I mean, I can talk about this stage of puberty because I went through quite a lot of things. And, you know, it's a good thing that I probably had resilience, really. That's all I can say, because I remember as well that, it was always told, like our mum, she loved the boys, she loved boy kids. Didn't she? Mum loved boy kids, didn't she? She's not saying anything. She did. She does. She loved boys, kids. Look at our brothers anyway. Come on.
Go on, carry on.
I must have been the dark horse of the family then. But she used to say, she used to always talk about boys, kids, and girls, they're trouble. And she told me, she liked boys better than girls. Mum said that. Yeah, she did. She liked boys, kids better because girls, kids cause a lot of trouble. And I think they always look at it in the form that they go out there and get pregnant, don't they? Whereas for boys,
bring trouble home, don't they?
That's right. So I took that to heart as well. And also, I think as well, like I was saying, the impact of, you know, going there, because, you know, you're growing little breasts, and, you know, they use that to you know, put you on the manners and stuff like that. And I hated being a girl. You know what I used to do, guys? I used to go down to the back garden and I say, "Oh, please, God, change me. I want to be a boy." You know, a bit like Pinocchio. I want to be a real boy. I said, "Please, God, change me into a boy. I don't want to be a girl." Go back up and have a look. I'm still a girl. And I remember praying that thing so often because I didn't want to be a girl.
Yeah.
And with my brother, my older brother, I wanted to be like my brother. And so he always liked John Wayne, and so he used to put his Wranglers on. I don't think they got Wranglers nowadays, but they used to have Wranglers in those days. Put his Wranglers on, and he'd be walking like I'm John Wayne. So I thought to myself, so when he didn't want his jeans, I used to put his jeans on. I put them jeans on, and it was me walking down the road. Yeah, I'm John Wayne. Today, you know what would happen, don't you?
Yeah, you'd be seen as
Yeah,
choosing what side
choosing what size.
you
So
wanted to be. Who did
and
you identify
really,
as?
I don't feel like, you know, I know that I'm a woman, but
Yeah.
in that time, that's how I felt
Yeah, yeah,
at that time, and it's only
yeah,
because of, what was said to me. So you
yeah,
see,
yeah. So those things do need to be explored more with people who feel they want to go change, or they want to be different, or they don't feel right in their own skin. People need to be treated with tenderness and sensitivity
well,
rather than people saying that's definitely what you need to do, if you
yeah,
understand me. Because
yeah.
people are still developing, aren't they?
They are still
So people have
developing
to be very
and they're not
careful.
quite sure
Yeah,
because I mean, like I said at that time, I knew I wanted to be a boy for a reason because
yeah.
how I was
Meant to feel. Yeah,
meant to
meant
feel.
to feel. Yeah,
But do I feel that way today? No, I don't.
yeah,
So that's why I always say that sometimes with young people, young women, when they're going through this tender age of puberty, we have to be careful
mm.
what we,
What we say
what we
to them and
say,
what's been said.
and how
Mm.
they're treated because they can't really, they're not developed in their
Mm.
mind enough
Yeah,
to
yeah.
to make
I think there's
many
also
choices.
also another side to that as well. Is that
Mm,
what are our young girls watching? What are
mm,
they tuning into? Because as parents, you
mm.
may not be using any words on them that would really
Yeah,
switch them up,
yeah,
or
yeah.
change the way they think about
Mm,
themselves, but it's what they're looking at and listening to. So it's like social media, it's their friends, because when they're cut off from their parents as well,
mm,
or the older heads in the house, they're tuning into their friends who
mm,
don't have no life experience really.
mm,
Do you know what I mean? So they're not really getting substantial information to
mm,
make decisions, you know, and or listening to the right words or the right vibes that's going to put them on the right
mm,
tracks, and
mm,
sometimes those, we hear about young people, young girls being trolled, or they're being horrible things are said to them on social media. Some of them commit
mm.
suicide, all those kind
Yeah,
of things,
yeah,
because they're at that age, and identity
yeah. It's a
means a
very big.
lot to them at that
Mm.
age. So it's boy, parents
And they have
got to
pressure,
be
and
on
they
the
have
ball.
peer pressure as well.
Oh yeah,
Peer pressure, um, and like you said, the media's got a lot to
oh yeah,
to to
yeah,
to
yeah,
to play.
yeah.
So as parents, how can we um, help our young children as adolescents? How can we come on board with them so they know that we're not the enemy?
Mhm.
Um,
It's hard, isn't it? Because I think
mm,
sometimes you can say, okay, we've got to be real, in a
mm,
sense that we talk about our truths to them, what it
yeah.
was like for us or whatever. But then that's not as easy as that either, because you find that a lot of young people don't want to listen to us. Older heads, young girls don't want to listen to us. Older heads, we're past it. We're dinosaurs. So it's kind of hard to get that kind of message across to them. How
Mm,
do we make it real? And as parents, if they're shutting themselves off, like you said, your friends
mm,
was doing, her daughter
their
did.
daughter was
How
doing that.
how does she break through? And if a young woman is watching this now,
Mm,
you know, and you're feeling that way, where you're going to shut yourself off and isolate yourself off from your parents, or your the older fogies.
mhm.
How can we get through to you? What would open that door? We would really love to know. We would
Mm.
really love to know, because we're doing something wrong.
Well, what are
We're
we not
missing a trick.
understanding? Yeah, what are we not really
Yeah, what aren't we
understanding?
getting?
Because my granddaughter, she's actually getting at that age. where she'll be going to secondary school, and I've seen a transition with her where she was so talkative, and she was giving me hugs and cuddles, and I thought we was going to be best friends forever. And now you find that she doesn't really talk to me that much. And yeah, as a grandmom, I miss that because I thought I was up in her world. I thought that I'll be able to link and talk to her. But
because it's almost like they're conserving all their energies to understand what they're going through and their growth spurts. They got no time for you because you're external to them. They're still trying to understand what's happening to themselves.
yeah,
You know,
you have got a point there because it's probably all still to do with their hormones, where they're not quite sure where they are at this moment. It's up and down, and it plays a part with their emotions.
And you imagine there's so many voices out there vying for their attention. So they're being pulled left, right, and centre. And you know what it's like for us sometimes when you're hearing all these different voices in your head telling you to do this and that, we get frustrated by it. And for someone who's young, a young girl, to be going through those physical changes as well as emotional and psychological, it's not easy.
I think it's a good thing for people to educate themselves, to read up more, to know what to expect, really, with adolescents.
So when you say people, who's the people you're referring to?
Like when I say people, I mean like parents.
Elders,
So they'll have an understanding, because I think sometimes when you're already an adult, you forget what it was like yourself as as growing up. So I think sometimes we probably do need to be.
I think that's interesting.
Educated.
Yes, I agree with that. Sometimes you do forget what it was like, but sometimes you remember. You think, my kids aren't going to go through that. So you got two ways to that, haven't you?
Yeah.
There's two ways. So it's both.
It's a learning curve.
And
it is a learning curve. But I think sometimes we do probably need to be educated. Well, we've exhausted that one quite a lot.
We haven't, because when we're talking about puberty, another thing is virginity.
Okay.
All right, virginity. Because in our time, you was taught, and even in older times, they said, put your hands on your apony, keep your hands on your apony. Right, which meant, you don't go out there sleeping around. You need to keep your virginity for when you meet Mr. Right. And we were saying this when we talked, me and my sister were saying, well, what is the kind of perspective now, about young girls, being virgins? Is it discussed in the school yards where they're saying, you need to get rid of that thing quickly,
What age do you think then that the sexual feelings, or where they start to look at boys? I mean, because adolescent is still growing. So what age would you think they'll start to be aware about boys and feeling in a way that they do? What age do you think?
Well, I suppose it can depend on the child as well, doesn't it? And
how much they mature.
And how quickly they mature, Yeah,
12.
See, it might even be that,
12 and upwards, when they start secondary school, because when they start secondary school, they're having boyfriends. So,
that's it. And when you think what they're watching on social media now, in some of the shows, Coronation Street, Emmerdale, all those kind of things, all those things are happening quick. So they're being programmed on what's acceptable and what's the done thing, and everything's okay. So it could be happening. Nothing's seen as off limits.
So what advice do you think we now, as adults, or grown older people, put it that way, because we're older people now, what advice could we sort of give or encourage younger people about young girls about these things of losing their virginity really quickly, or do you think it's something that they need to hold on to for a while till they meet the right person, or do you think it's just society the way it is, where it's all, you know?
I think an important thing for young girls is to realize the value of themselves, the
Mm,
value of who they are, how important they are, how beautiful they are, how unique they are. You
mm,
know, you know, the Bible talks about your body is a temple,
mm,
and it should be worshipped. And a lot of time, what happens behind closed doors with
mm,
young people experiencing sex for the first time, there's no worshipping going on, and that's sad. That's sad because
mm,
sometimes young girls regret that, because you
mm,
know the guys are also at a different maturity age
mm,
than girls. Do you know what I mean? And when a young girl will fall in love with a young guy, and sometimes he's not even at that stage. He's still experimenting, man. Where does that go? You know what I mean?
but
And
when you s-
you're just that what's up? You're just that experiment.
but when you
You
say
know,
fall
so
in love, I think it's
no,
too,
I'm talking
yeah,
about from
yeah.
their perspective, because
Yeah.
when I was young,
Mm.
right, and met people, a guy, I thought I was in love. When my heart was broken. You, that's the thing. Do you understand me?
Mm.
That's the stage I'm talking
Mm.
from the young person's
Mm.
focus. They would
Mm.
say they were in love
Yeah, but
because that's genuine for them.
you find like there's so many things out there which is really sort of advocating that, you know, losing your virginity is a great thing, really. You think of all these, the media, all these social media that the young people are watching. There's Love Island. There's all these different things.
Yeah.
So they got all these against them. So it's very hard to know how to choose and what is right when you've got all these things forcing, pushing up against your face like this all the time.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know how parents feel about maybe their young girls um, going into a sexual relationship when they're so young, sort
And
of 12, 13, 14. I know some of them put them on
the pill and stuff
the
like that.
pills and stuff like that because they do have um, is it sexual education
Mm.
at school from a very, very early age.
Yeah, but
So,
sexual education, what does that mean? Because is it just telling you a square peg goes into a square hole, or is it telling you about values as well? Because
mm,
I always think that's the absence
yeah,
of value, and
yeah,
value is vital.
it is. I
You
think so
know, it's
too.
vital. So
Maybe a
how
bit.
do you value yourself?
They might look at us a bit being a bit old-fashioned, but you know something. There's nothing wrong with being old-fashioned because sometimes it can save you a lot of pain.
Yeah, it can
It
save you
can
a lot of
save you a
pain.
lot. It can save you a lot of pain.
Mm,
Um, yeah.
mm. Because like in the old days as well, when you know how people or young girls were seen when they, what's the word, fell, as they would
Mm,
say in those days. You know, they became pregnant. The guy disappeared off the scene, and it was
mm,
a young pregnant girl. You
mm,
know, when they were ostracized and stigmatized, or
mm,
sent even to be with nuns, and you
mm.
know, and
Yeah, I
stuff
think I
like
think I
that.
think we covered some of that before
Mm,
in Motherhood, didn't we?
yeah,
Um, but those things probably they're not stigmatized nowadays. People don't really. It's not a big issue like it was
mm,
then, is it
no, no,
really?
it's not a big issue
Not a
as it
big
was
issue
then.
like it was then.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's interesting, isn't it, how things have changed
yeah,
in
things
that
have changed.
respect. But
Things
yeah,
have changed in a big time. But I still think young girls need to being educated because you find there's so many other sexual diseases out there
mm,
that you just got to be aware
yeah,
of and have some sort of um, what would you call? Sometimes it's very hard to think of the words to
it's
say.
just taking care of your
Taking
body,
care of,
really.
that's right.
Being responsible. Don't
Yeah,
leave it up to the blokes, the guys. You know,
yeah,
you just be responsible. We're not judging anybody.
that's right.
You
You're
know,
not
we're
sure.
talking from our experiences of life and what we want to make sure that young girls are safe and that you
Yeah,
get to enjoy your life.
yeah.
You enjoy your life. You don't start
Mm,
being a mother too early. You can travel around with your girlfriends. There's just so much of life to have.
Or not even
Not
be,
that I'm saying that you're not going to have life with a child, but it's just doing things.
and it's not really being a mother only. It's an issue of that sometimes young girls, they, because of peer pressure and because of media and other things that they see, things are glorified, and they go out there and they've probably slept with somebody, and really they weren't even ready for that. Some of them weren't really ready, and then they've gone in life and they probably meet someone that they really like, and they wish that they didn't do that, but because all the pressure, because girls sometimes don't really want to as much as probably
Sometimes they
boys,
don't, yeah.
and so therefore you find that it's the pressure, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think so. Sometimes it's the
That's
pressure.
true. That's
I don't know
true.
what other people out there think, but I think sometimes there's a lot of pressure on
Yeah, and sometimes,
young girls.
and then sometimes young girls are forced because sometimes they say no,
Mhm.
and it continues. Yeah, and that's sad. That's
Yeah.
sad.
So what other thing have we got that we haven't covered?
Right. Well, we can move on to the next thing. We can talk about. I can never say this word. Adolescence.
Did we?
You
Did
want
we?
to see your microphone now again?
Yeah, it keeps moving all the
Yeah.
time. If I was to
No.
put it, if I was to put it here,
Put the gloves again.
if I put it here, would that work on
Put
the
it,
top?
try. No, we put it heavy, so I'll pull down the.
Do you think
the
so?
thing.
That way.
No. You happy with that? All
Yeah.
right.
Does that work?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think with adolescent really is similar. It's similar. It's sort of under the same umbrella as puberty, because um, it's where you become a teenager, isn't it? And teenagers we've got here is like from 13 to 19.
Yeah. Well, teenagers go. It comes under the umbrella of adolescence. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we've probably covered quite a lot
Yeah. Because we
over
we
in
talked
puberty
about,
to that age, because
Yeah.
puberty, they're all sort of linkings, because puberty is when you're transgressing to a woman.
Transferring into that.
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
find that they sort of interlink and overcover each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we can have a look at maybe stereotypical.
Yeah. Stereotypes. Okay.
Mm.
Yeah. So what stereotypes have we got then? So stereotypes have been
A
I
woman.
can't even say it.
No, just being what stereotype do they have out there of us as women?
Well, they see
Because
us
remember,
as
it's
the
womanhood we're
weaker,
talking.
the weaklings. We're seen as the weaker sex.
Mm.
We're not as capable as. We're less capable. Shouldn't play football.
Well, as you can see, things are really changing in this
I
time,
know.
because things are looked on a bit different. Because when you
Yeah.
think of it, women are boxing now, which I think is
Yes,
a
they are.
gruesome thing. I don't really like boxing. Sorry out there for people who like boxing, but I'm not. I'm not a boxing fan. I don't like pain. But yeah, yeah, women sometimes in workplaces, if they're a boss
Yeah.
and they have men which are under them, you find
Yeah.
that you have um,
Tension.
that tension
Yeah.
where they don't really like a woman
Telling them what to
telling
do.
them
Yeah.
what to do.
And they always say a woman has to be harder in that leadership role. She has to play harder,
Yeah.
to get the respect. And that's sad as well.
Yeah, and I remember something, and this is going back quite a few years now, because I was only young. I think I was, I think might have been about 18, and I worked for a garage. I worked for a garage at the time. I think it was Talbot Motors, and there was no women mechanics at all, as far as I can remember. And there was this young girl, and she was a mechanic in the workshop. Oh my God, they gave her hell. They made life hell for her, very, very difficult. And when she wanted tools, they'd give her something which wasn't what she wanted.
Get a left-handed scissors or something like that. Yeah.
So you find that.
Yeah.
But like I said, things have changed quite a lot. I was only speaking to one of my students recently, and she's doing science.
Yeah.
But that's not what she wants to do. She said next year she's going to be doing a mechanic
Okay.
course. And I thought, what? You're going to be doing a mechanic course? She says, yeah, I'm going to be doing a mechanic course. And I said, go there, girl. I says, you know, you're going to have to stand up strong in that workshop, don't you?
Yeah. But
But she's
yeah.
like, I can hold my own, miss.
Yeah, but it is important because, like he says, women will struggle,
Yeah,
and yes, there's been changes. Like now, opportunities
yeah.
have opened up, but when you get through that door,
Mm,
what do they experience? We could already talking about women um, in the police force, with all
yeah,
what they're having to experience, even in
yeah,
the army, what
yeah.
they're experiencing,
Yeah, difficult times.
discrimination and sexual harassment, all
Mm,
those things have been covered, and it shouldn't be. So these are some of the things that are stereotypes of women. They're
yeah,
seen as sex objects, women who can be preyed upon,
yeah.
pinched, poked, all that kind of stuff. And really, they don't do that to the blokes. Or if they do, you know, you shouldn't really be doing it to a woman, because wasn't it one of the guys, I don't remember his name, when the woman footballer, she was receiving her medal or a
Oh,
cup,
yes,
and he
yes,
gave her a big smackaroonie on her lips,
yes.
and what did she have him for?
Yeah, she
Sexual
did.
harassment or whatever, and he was like, what? Scratching his head. What did I do? What? Well, he didn't kiss another guy in his mouth, did he? So it's just interesting, isn't it? And some people say, well, it was just a moment. It was just,
Mm,
what can you say? People have to be mindful now. You don't do that. You don't go slapping a woman on her bottom and stuff like that. Because it's not the done thing really. We're not sex objects, are we?
as
You
some
know,
may think.
as some may think, yeah.
But then some men will say, well, women play the game, don't they?
Some do,
Because you
yeah.
find that they say like, oh, you see her, she's come out dressed in her short skirts up here and all this hanging out like
Yeah,
that. So if anything happens, she's asking for it.
yeah, wow.
Well, is this things that these things shouldn't really happen? But that's
No.
how women are sometimes seen. If they dress in a certain way,
Provocatively, they ask for it.
they
And
ask.
that's funny, isn't it? Because that's almost like, it's
Mm,
almost like gaslighting. What you say, gaslighting, you're
yeah.
shifting the blame.
Mm,
As a man, well, I'm not responsible for that, because nothing would have happened if she didn't dress like that.
yeah.
But all my physicality would never have happened if she
Yeah.
didn't dress like that. Control it, go and control your stuff, mate. Showers, cold showers. It doesn't
Yeah.
justify that. Doesn't
Yeah.
justify that at all. Women should be respected. And if a woman chooses what she wants to wear, she
Mm,
shouldn't be harassed for it. That's her choice. It's her choice. It may not be my choice, but that's
mm.
her choice. You know.
And
You
we're not the
know.
weakest link either.
No.
That's what I think personally. Women are not. We're quite strong within
Mm,
our own rights.
mm.
So for the men out there who maybe think that women are maybe a weak link, we're not, because
Yes.
without us,
Where would you be? It's a bit like the song. It's a man's world.
yeah. But they need a woman.
But there's nothing without a woman or a girl. So yeah. So
We,
yeah, we are important, and I think we do want to be just respected that way, really, and treated properly, really, treated as women with value. Value what we have to say, value what we think, even sort of enable us and
mm,
lift us up and inspire us as well, support us, but
mm.
don't put down and don't demeanor. So it's an education, eh?
Um,
So what else were we saying? Or we did want to talk a look about anything about
there was culture,
the culture,
the culture,
the cultures of womanhood.
how women are seen maybe in different um, culture. And
Well, yeah, well, that's true as well. Because, like, okay, I know, like in some African cultures,
mm,
the women are seen to be the matriarchs, aren't they? And
mm,
you know, they rule the roost and they are in control. But yet in some other, like the Western world, well, some people say, is it different? Because I remember in the old days, people used to talk about when, like, a man used to go and work, he'd get his wages and he'd come home and he'd put all of his wages on the table for his wife, right?
mm.
And then she'd give him his little pocket money.
Well, that
But I'm not
was.
sure if that still
I
happens
I
today.
doubt that unless she's wearing the trousers. But many years ago,
Yeah.
that's probably how it was like
Yeah.
here. But I find that maybe in some culture, women are still they're subservient.
Mm.
So you always find that maybe some Eastern countries, the women might say yes, they might say no. But from what I've learned and what I've seen, and sometimes women are a bit more subservient. That the men is always at the top,
Mm.
and they have to sort of do what their husband sort of
Tells them to do.
tells them to
Yeah.
do. Where in the West is not so much like that, really, is it?
Mm. Well, yeah. I suppose that is true because women, I think they have more of a voice now. But I think it's like, when people are getting married now
Mm,
and the vows
mm.
where it says,
Oh yeah.
I
Honor,
will,
honor your husband.
yeah, honor your husband or be, what do you say? There's another word. It's not just honor. It's not, oh gosh, it's not subject yourself. What's the word? Submission is submission, isn't it?
Yeah.
Promise to submit.
Submit.
And,
Yeah.
people submit, me submit, how dare you,
Well, you sort of wonder where these things came from
Yeah.
originally about
Yeah, but what does that word actually mean? Because some
submit.
people fly off the handle without thinking what it means. And you have to look at the two scenarios. What is the responsibility of the man where the woman would want to submit? Because if he doesn't show her love and he doesn't value her as himself, you ain't going to want to submit to him. But if he's prepared to do anything for you, he takes care of you. He takes you out. He inspires you. He enables you to develop and to grow, right? And he values what you got to say. All those things are ticking boxes. You tell me that woman ain't gonna say, "Whoa, yeah, I'll do anything for that guy."
Do you hear
'Cause
that? Do you hear
he'll
that, men
do
out
anything
there?
for me.
So if you're not doing that,
You got to pick up the slack, guys. Pick up the slack, So it's about the men. You got to love your wives. You got to, or your partners, you got to love them. Really love them. And if you do, I think they will do anything.
yeah,
within reason,
we don't really ask much. I don't think, like you said, we don't really ask for much, but we just want to be seen.
Yeah.
We want to be seen and be respected.
Yeah.
And to be loved.
Yeah. Can I just say one thing though? Because I remember watching one religious program or some women having this chat, and they said, "You must call your man Lord and King." I thought, excuse me. Let's get a balance here, yeah? Let's get a balance because just like our men folks have needs, women have needs too. And don't get it twisted. I think that's important because you heard about men are from Mars, women are from Venus. It's about knowing the machinations of a woman's mind. And a lot of that gets misconstrued because obviously men are more, what's the word? They see things from a physical perspective. Women
all in
are
the mind.
emotional.
Yeah,
so you've got to be mindful of all that. But we can have a further talk a bit later on. Got some juicy stuff for you. But you got to tune in if you want to hear it.
Oh, dear me. Is there anything else that we can...
Oh, dear. Right, so yeah. So we're talking still about adolescence, aren't we? And if you wanted to move on, did you want to move on to... Oh, because we also talked about with adolescence and looking at, the importance of image as well, which still goes into puberty. And we're talking about like media influences and stuff because now there's such crazy things happening in the media and women are being told, okay, to be attractive like the model that they've airbrushed, by the way, or who's gone under several knives, you can do that as well, and now you're finding that a lot of young girls are getting things done early, and some mothers
getting their lips done.
Some mothers are encouraged. Do you remember when we went abroad? And one mother was saying to us, "Oh, she's been under the knife and that," and she's trying to tell her daughter, who was perfect in our eyes, wasn't she? And she's trying to tell, "I'm trying to get my daughter to go and have, lipo and cuts and blah blah blah." And she was trying to push her
because her mother was doing it herself.
Because her mom was doing it herself.
Yeah, so not that we're against people doing that, but I think you have to let young people grow and
Develop
develop
first. Develop naturally
and be
first.
comfortable in their own body without feeling that things are pushed in their faces where they think this is how you have to look, this is how you've got to look like this. That's what beautiful is.
Yeah.
Because what is beauty really?
Yeah.
What is beauty really?
Yeah.
It's pretty deep.
Yeah.
Because all these things that you're probably doing to your face, that's not what really beauty is. But I think people push that. It's what, you know, and it's what they see. They think that's what beauty is. Because, I work with a lot of young people because I work at a college. And you find that some of them are 16 and they've come, but they've had their lips done. But they must have had permission of their parents. I don't think maybe at 16 is the age, maybe 18,
Yeah, I think
probably.
18 they want it. There's no strict laws,
Yeah,
but they do say like 18 really is
18.
what
Yeah,
is
but
preferred.
they're having
Yeah.
all these fillers already in their lips,
Mm.
and they're only young.
Mm.
But it's because it's a trend,
Yeah, it is a
and
trend.
that's what happens when things become a trend. People think they have to do
Yeah.
these things.
And the
So
thing is, once you start, you got to maintain it.
that's
You
right.
can't stop. And sometimes it's like it opens a Pandora's box,
Mm,
doesn't it? And it gets
mm,
more. I mean, I was watching a program about young girls who were having cosmetics done, and they
mm.
started off something really, really small, probably a little. Some of them were flat, and they decided they want to get a bit more
Bit
oomph.
chest, a
And,
bit of
and
chest.
you know what? You can understand. You can
Mm,
understand it, but then you started to find that they started to get more and more done, and
body
sometimes they
image.
even wanted to go bigger. And when they started to get attention, then
Yeah,
they started to have this thing called, is it
body.
fans only?
Oh,
Fans only,
oh yeah,
where they'd get money
yeah.
for having
OnlyFans,
bigger
yeah.
breasts. What's this? Sorry,
Only,
only on
OnlyFans.
only fans, and
Oh
where they could have money,
gosh.
and they're getting paid big money to
Mm.
show their wares. So and wow, what can you say about that?
But this
You
is what I
know,
was saying. It's because of all the pressure
yeah,
that young people
yeah,
gets. It's the
yeah,
pressure, isn't it? That
yeah,
leads them into these paths of these
yeah. Because
things.
these things that they
And they're
prey on
and they're
people,
very
don't they?
impressionable when they're
Yeah,
young.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you know,
And sometimes they do themselves damage. They don't realize the damage they're doing, and sometimes they go to places that don't care about them and just poke them around and do more
mm,
damage. Put silicone stuff that's already dissolving in their chest and giving.
mm.
It's a big risk.
But don't you
It's
think
a
that's
big
why I
risk.
say young people need to be educated?
They do as
Because
well. They
really,
do.
there's nobody out there telling them
Yeah.
these things are, not probably too good for you,
Yeah.
you know.
But I don't think young people don't always listen, because I think it's not going to happen to me. It's not going to happen to me. I
Well,
believe that. But young people, if you're listening,
mm.
what do you think? Do you think it's not going to happen to
But
me?
I think it's the government
Eventually.
that needs to take charge, really. The government need to take charge. They're putting all policies in for other things. So
Hmm.
why can't they bring something in that's going to help to stop some of these things, or at least educate people, young
Yeah.
people? They're telling them about sex education in school. Why don't they bring some of these things into
Yeah.
school and educate young people? They can do
Yeah.
that.
Or have people come in who say,
Yeah,
this is from experience.
that's right.
We've been here with this. When I was young, this happened. And sometimes people listen to people's stories
Yeah,
than reading boring documents.
yeah, yeah.
So they have to find different ways of getting that message across, really. you
Mm.
know but it's hard as well when a person feels, like you said, body dysmorphia, when a person
Yeah.
feels that they are not right in their skin, they need to change. That's a hard place to be. It's a hard place to be,
Yeah, well,
and I don't have the answers for that, but it's a hard place to
it's a
be, you
very,
know
very, very,
because it's happening up here, isn't it?
yeah,
you know
yeah, because they just look at themselves and everything they see
they
is
don't like it.
ugly, they don't like, and they think this has got to change, and it never
Mm.
stops. It just goes
Yeah,
on and on and on and
yeah.
on. But it's a shame, and I do feel it for young people who are experiencing
Mm.
these things.
Yeah. I suppose when, as well, if you're a young girl and you're kind of geekish at school, or people don't necessarily like you, haven't warmed to you, you're kind of isolated, you don't have no friends, then you're forced to go online and look for things
you do, because
that's gonna, and these people who put on these matters on online, they're very clever. They have algorithms that can pick up all your little quirks and tune into you and reel you in, you know, and cause all kind of havocs. And it's sad. And as parents as well, we're not always wise to that. We've trusted.
So how can parents, then get on board and be clued up?
Yeah, well, I think
Because sometimes parents are not clued up. I'm a grandmom. I'm a grandmom, all right, and so my kids are grown up now. But for my grandchildren, I would like to be a little bit more clued up, because, like I said, the world itself is going so fast. Everything's so quick. Everything's technology, and you know. And sometimes when you're not up to date on those things, how can you get up to date with things like that to be able to help young girls? Because I've got two granddaughters, and I'd like to see them enjoy their life growing up as young people, enjoying what I probably enjoyed when I was young, without feeling you have to grow up so quickly and you have to look like this. What society portray what beauty is. Because
it is interesting.
How can you make them feel balanced within themselves, where they don't, where they grow up being strong individual who can make wise decision?
You know what I think the answer is? Well, I'm not all that clever, but what I think part of the answer is, it's not one person's responsibility. I think there's a whole lot of people in the chain of, it's like when you draw a circle, the young girls in the circle, and there's all these other people that should be tuning into that to make a difference, like teachers or education, government, the media, you know what I mean? There's so many.
But you can never hold the media responsible for anything, really.
But I'm just saying, there's people that need to be playing a part and need to be held responsible,
the government
and be
needs to.
Accountable for playing their part. What are you putting out in your media that needs to change? I know they're trying to look at Facebook and some other stuff that's putting out things that's not savory, and they're trying to pull them back on those things. But things do need to be put in place, because young people and young girls are vulnerable, and there's these elements out there that know that, and they will prey on that because it's lucrative for them to do that. They don't care about these young girls. They don't care. So it's interesting.
It's interesting. It's very, very interesting.
And it's scary. I wouldn't want to be.
It is scary. It is very, very scary, and I do feel scared for young girls out there today. And I just think parents, they need to get on board more with their young girls. Try and take them under their wings in some ways, because I mean, it worked before, where where families, when they sit, I think a lot of that is really changed, and I think it's because you think, if everyone's busy in their life as family, there's no one sits around the dinner table, and have conversation, mothers to daughters, and make them feel that connection. I think that is something that is missing.
It is missing big time.
And then they're going to go out there to other things. They're going to go out there to other things. So I think that true. Needs to come back on board.
They'll find other things to affiliate
of course, they'll find other things to fill. Where if they had that one-to-one, checking on them now and then, find out how they are, how's things in their life, and just sit down and have those little talk with them.
I think, like you said, it is the family thing as well. That connection, that unity, that community. It even widens. I mean, like in Jamaica, for instance, then like as a young girl or young boy, you knew that once you left your house, walking down that road, if you didn't say hello to the neighbor, right, you didn't have manners, or you was misbehaving, you knew that neighbor could give you a conk in your head, or tell you off or challenge you on that, and then that neighbor would go and tell your parents, and then you'd be in more trouble. You know, you don't have that kind of
Network. You don't have
community
that
network and
Yeah.
concern for each other. We've become insular, whereas we shouldn't be, because I think there's power in connections, there's power in relationships, there's power in family, and there's power in community.
Yeah.
And we've lost that. There's a song that springs to mind.
What's that?
We lost that love and
Oh,
feeling. You know, love is waxed cold, and we got to bring that back. We got to get it back.
Yeah.
Got to get it back. Got to get it back, sis.
Yeah, it is. It is a hard one, and
It is.
it's not easy growing up in this world as
No,
young women. It's
very hard.
very hard. But yeah, I think mothers do need to, come on board and have that one-to-one more often with their young girls.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Yeah.
And be honest.
And be
And be
honest.
blatantly honest, embarrassingly honest as well.
And be honest. Be
Yeah.
honest with everything.
Yeah, you got to
And be open.
Yeah, because I think a lot of young girls will probably say, "Well, you don't understand what it's
Yeah,
like to
no, that's
go through
it.
this." And when your parent sits you down and says, "Well, let me tell you something,"
That's right.
it's kind of like, wow.
Yeah.
You know, it's an eye opener. So yeah, mothers have got to be
They
real
do.
and
You have
tell
to-
it
you have
as
to-
it is.
You have to be real and tell it,
Have to,
and
yeah.
we tell it as it is, because we didn't just grow up with mothers or
No.
grow up as women like that without going through the same experiences. So
Yeah.
I think sharing your experiences
Yeah.
with
Yeah, and I think there needs to be more community stuff as well, because I think that a lot of times when, I think, not my age group, but younger than me, we found that young girls were having babies young, so they didn't have that network really. You know, maybe their moms or dads or parents said, "Go, we don't want to know," or whatever. So they had to do things on their own. So they haven't had the foundation that they really needed to enable them to grow and develop. So their journey has been a very difficult one. So anything they've passed down now to that young girl growing up
Okay, right. I see where you're coming from.
is
Yeah,
not
yeah.
going to be
Yeah.
necessarily the best, because they didn't
It's
have
like a
the
cycle.
best
You're trying
for
to say it's like a
themselves.
cycle. It's like a cycle, isn't
yeah.
it?
And it's important to break that cycle.
Yeah.
You know.
That's a good one, sis.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to the next topic, which is
Okay.
probably
Is that where I am at now?
yeah, me.
Aging.
Where I am at as well. Do we really
Yeah,
want to
move
go
on,
there?
move on.
Do we really want to go there?
Yeah, let's go there. Yeah.
Oh,
What are the stereotypes about that one, mate?
aging.
As women, eh?
What do you say?
Well, you know, I know I know what media says about aging. Like, look at the people in Hollywood, for instance, the women,
Yeah.
you know, where they feel, boy, you can't grow old, because if you grow old, you're redundant. You're put on a scrap heap. You're no
Yeah.
longer beautiful. You know what I mean? That's one thing that's said. When you get old, people don't see you as beautiful. They don't even see you as having a sexuality, you know, or wanting sex. Because some people say, well, you know, old people, I saw that old man and that old woman hooking up. Oh my gosh. You know, it's like, come on, you know, your feelings don't just turn off like that. You're no longer a human being. Of course, you're still a human being. You still see yourself as young. It's just your body that
Stereotype.
tells you, Maureen,
Oh,
you
yeah.
can't run as fast as you used to. You know, so it's
You
just
remind me. I'm going to tell
interesting.
you something. Now you said that.
Okay.
That's just jogged something in my mind. I remember when the children's dad was in hospital and he was ill, and there was this old chappie in the next bed, and the doctor came in to see him, and he was asking him various different questions. Who's the queen? And how
Oh, yeah.
old are you?
Yeah.
You know, when were you born and stuff like that.
Mental capacity
Yeah,
test.
and then all of a sudden he was saying, I heard him saying, "Oh, it was only the other day I was able to go and put the kettle on, but now I can't even do that. It's in my head, but for me to go and do that,
Can't do it.
I can't do that." And he says, and now there's no more sex. And I thought to myself, and I was young then, I thought,
Yeah.
bloody hell,
Yeah,
at that
yeah,
age, he's
that
thinking
age.
about that. He's about 89 years old. So I was one of those that thought,
Yeah,
well,
it's funny, isn't it?
he's redundant, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is funny how you do see people.
And that's got to
Old
change,
age.
some
And for
people just
women,
think,
it's
"Oh,
and for women, it's probably even worse, isn't it?
Yeah.
You see, the men think she's old now. They're going out there to look for a new,
the younger
new model.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of
Yeah.
stigma when you
There is.
when you start to get a bit old.
Yeah.
And for women themselves, how they feel about their own body,
Yeah.
because
Your
I did-
body's changing again.
because your
isn't it?
body's changing and you're looking at yourself in the mirror.
Mm.
I remember my mother-in-law. She says to me, "Oh, Chris," she said, "I hate." She said, "I hate being old." She said, "Every time I go to that mirror," she said, "all I see is my wrinkles." That's what she did.
Yeah.
So, and some people grow gracefully, don't
Some
they?
people do grow old gracefully.
You know, but I think, like you said, it's all that's out there about when you start to get old. It's like you're just ready for the
The scrap heap.
scrap heap.
Yeah.
And I still think people should still feel dignified and grow in grace
Yeah.
in their old age and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Women
Yeah.
should, without feeling that they're redundant.
Yeah. You
You
shouldn't
know,
let
then-
yourself go, really, should you?
No, you
Like
shouldn't let
thinking,
yourself
I can't be bothered, and I can't be bothered to wear a bra. Especially if you're a buxom woman, I'll just let it drown. Swing at my knees. You should
I don't
still
know who think
put
about
out
that. I don't know who
effort.
think about that, Maureen, but I should.
Still put out the effort in it. Still
Yeah, you
put
still,
out
you
the
still.
effort and be,
I think you
dress
still
for
have.
yourself, man. Dress for yourself and to look.
Yeah, you still have to
Still
put
look
out
good,
the effort
man,
as
yeah.
a woman, and you know, you have to feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's nothing you can do as women. We're all getting older, and you have to do the best you can with it and accept
to
it, because
embrace it.
every one of us is going to get old. So I think if you have that mentality and look after yourself, you know.
Yeah.
But I think women probably tend to worry more than men about that, because they always have this in their mind as they start to get older, that men are going to go and look, if they're with their partner, they're going to be looking at somebody else who is younger. I think some women go through that, don't they? Especially if they're not feeling amorous, because there's this thing called menopause.
Yeah.
And so
Which means men, stop. Yeah, menopause, yeah.
And so you find that they don't feel the way they used to feel, do they?
No, they don't. No, they don't. Menopause is very difficult thing, and a lot of people don't understand it. A lot of men don't
understand
it. Understand it. You see your wives changing, and you're thinking, what's wrong with her? She's moody. She snaps at everything. She's hot one minute, she's cold the next. I can't please this woman. There's just she's scatty. She can't think.
Yeah, 'cause we tend to forget.
This ain't my wife. All these
Does that happen to any
and
women?
another thing again, she doesn't want sex. So.
But there again, it's not all women are like that. Some
all.
women are not like that. But I think a lot of women do go through that when they're going through menopause, don't they? It's a what would you call it? A difficult time for women, really, because they don't even know who they are themselves.
No.
But sometimes we do want men to understand a little bit more of, get on board, educate yourself, and try to understand what women are going through. I think men should have something like menopause. It's called menopause. It should have been for men, not for women. What do you think? Does men have anything like that out there where, they get like hot flushes or something like that, or where, well, mind you, they said there's this thing where
There's something, but
is it when they're 50 or over 50,
What,
where
midlife crisis?
they have midlife crisis? Is it a bit like that? Because we don't know. Is it a bit like a menopause, like how it's like a midlife crisis for us as well, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, because it is because your menstrual cycle. That's what menopause means. It means your menstrual cycle stops.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes people think they're no longer a woman because their childbearing days are gone. Some
Yeah.
women have to have hysterectomies as well,
Yes, loads of
and
different
that can be for some women that can be kind of
I didn't mean like
very very hard to grapple with.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it is a hard thing for some women. Sometimes it's worse for other women than
Than
others
others,
because
yeah.
sometimes even in the work environment,
Yeah, they don't
you
understand.
know, where you get confused sometimes.
Yeah,
If you're stressed, you can't. Things don't flow in your head
That's
because
right.
I've gone through menopause. And sometimes I'll forget things and repeat them. You know, I've gone through menopause, and sometimes I'll forget things and repeat them. I've gone through. You know, so it does happen.
Well, you've gone to you've gone to the cash point,
Yeah.
and you go, oh my God, what's
What's
that
my
number?
number?
I remembered it. I can't remember my number.
Yeah.
That's happened so many
Oh,
times.
Yeah.
You know, you've gone and
Yeah.
you got you've gone to you've done your shopping, and then you've got to put your pin in, and then you think, bloody hell, I can't remember my pin number, and you're there thinking, these people are probably thinking it's not her card.
It's terrible. I remember one time as well, coming back from a gig, and sorry, I parked my car. I knew where I parked it.
Yeah.
I've noted the landmarks,
Yeah.
right? In the day this was, I knew where my car was, right?
Yeah.
Went to the gig, coming back now, trying to find my car. Could I find my car? Up and down, walking about like a mad woman, thinking someone stolen my car. You know, I had someone come with me, and they were frantic, looking as well. Found it in the end about an hour later.
Oh,
Can you
Mars,
believe it?
that long?
Yeah, it's terrible.
You must have it bad.
Terrible. Shut up. Lock off. Let me just knock her out. So yeah, so menopause, we can laugh at it, and you do have funny moments where you can laugh at
Yeah,
things,
but
don't you?
it is a
But
dread thing. It is a
be
dread thing, though. This
can be scary.
this hot and cold thing, hot and cold thing, hot and cold thing. And I don't know. Sometimes for some of us as women, it's gone away for a long time. You think it's great.
Yeah.
It's like it's got lost. You know, and you feel great, and the next minute, bang! Hits you like a ton of brick, and you don't even know where it's coming from, do you?
I know.
And that is awful.
I know. That is
So,
horrible.
you know, I remember when I was going through my menopause and I went to my doctors and I said, they said it only lasts for 3 years. The doctor said, where did you hear that from? Yeah, I was told it's only for 3 years. I said, and?
No, it is.
So,
it's
a long time. It's a long time.
Yeah.
But, you know, it makes us wiser. Do you think so?
Oh, sometimes I don't know if we think that all the time, because sometimes when you're forgetting things constantly. I used to be a manager, and going into meetings, and you're talking, and then your sentence disappears, and you're trying to style it off like, you know, it's terrible.
Trying to catch you.
It's just horrible. It is horrible. But there's also the other side of menopause as well. It's like your libido can change, but you don't want it. Some women don't want it. Some people want it more often. Poor man, no, poor partner. But you know, so it can. It's different for different women. And some women go through menopause and they don't even notice.
Yeah,
and in some countries they don't even have a language for menopause. There's not a word for menopause. You know, and I think in is it China?
I think we wrote
China?
something down here to say that how menopause is looked at in a UK or European country. They look at it in a more negative way. Yeah, that's what we found out when we researched it.
Menopause, ladies.
You know, it's looked at more in a negative way than Eastern place. They look at it in a different way. There's another transition, but you're growing into wisdom. So I think, that's nice. That's interesting.
It's interesting.
You know, so that's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah. But as I was going to say before, I was interrupted by my older sister. My older sister, who has more authority than me. She commands the waves. With menopause as well, talking about libido. And also sometimes intercourse can be very difficult for women. Some women who go through menopause because there's what they call. So I'm going to go. I'm going to
Vaginal
go there
dryness.
for some
Yeah.
disease. There's vaginal dryness, and if your partner isn't mindful of those things and sensitive to those things, then that's not going to be very pleasurable for the woman. So, men, be mindful, show care, be gentle. You know what I mean?
And try to
what you do
understand.
that. And try to understand.
Try to understand that
Yeah.
she's not 21 again.
No, that's another thing as well.
She's not 21 again.
Forget about the gymnastics.
Sister, come on now.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But it's true. We've got to be real. When you're aging, you know, you got to be mindful of these things.
Yeah, you do
You know,
have to be mindful.
and value each other. Really, that's so important. Value each other and have those conversations and
have those conversations. That's quite important.
Yeah.
Have those conversations, because sometimes I think you have to be transparent, and sometimes women might not want to be that way because they're made to feel a certain way, you know. And so, yeah, men have to come on board. We have to be transparent, have the conversation, and come to some understanding. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's so important, isn't it, as well? Because the thing is, sometimes you might not want to have intercourse as often as every day, right? Or twice a day, as you probably used to. So it's about understanding as well, and having those discussions and being patient and all those things. And also, I think sometimes as women, we want our partners to see the whole of us, not just the physicality bit, the whole of us, and to romance the whole of us. Because when that doesn't happen, you're only getting a part of that person. You're only getting a part of that woman, and you're probably only getting 10%. So don't you really want the 100%? So if you want the 100%, you've got to romance the 100% of the woman, body, mind, and soul, and that's important. You can't neglect that.
Yeah, it's about understanding. As I was saying, it's about understanding, isn't it? Having those conversations. And it does help.
Yeah, because how vulnerable are you willing to go as well? You know, love is about vulnerability.
It is.
You know, so, and it's not about pride. Well, I can't tell her that. You know, come on.
Come on, man. We want to know it all.
Yeah, we do, don't we? The nosy sisters we are.
And we will tell you all too.
Yeah.
You know, it's about bearing it all, isn't it?
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Yeah.
And I do think we've probably covered more or less.
So what have we, okay, if we looked at sort of stuff, we've talked about stereotypes of aging, haven't we?
Yeah.
And have we talked about the culture and the religion of, is there anything about around that?
Yeah, we didn't really touch on anything about religion, did we?
No.
Because I dare say we could go back to some of those headings that we probably
but I remember in one of the conversation you were saying about women in the Bible, you know, or in religion, how women are seen. You were saying that sometimes women are seen as the bad, they're coloured as bad all the time. So what were you saying about that when we were discussing it?
We were discussing
it.
And I wondered whether some things have come from the Bible, how things are today, without people not really realising the way how women are looked at as being the ones that's subservient. Because when I read my Bible sometimes and I look in there, all the things you always see is all the women that's always doing everything bad. You know, it was Eve that gave Adam the apple.
The fruit.
The fruit.
She's to blame.
When they're talking about like the beast, they call her a whore. You know, there's lots of different little things in the Bible.
Or
that
the temptress.
the
Proverbs.
or the temptress. So
man never tempts.
no, and then you look at Samson, and it was the woman that did.
Delilah.
So so is it that women are really that bad? You know, but it's always women that seem to
Yeah.
be the
Yeah, and it's funny because in some countries where there's infidelity, the man gets off scotch free,
well,
and the
that's
woman
what I'm
is
saying again.
stoned or whatever. So it's kind of interesting, isn't it?
That's what I'm saying. It's
You
very,
know.
very interesting how women still what are hard done.
Hard done by, yeah.
Are hard done.
Hard
That's the
done
only way I
by.
can put it. Are hard done. But I was saying before you said that, I was looking at like some like religion in some of the other country, how they maybe look at women. You know, they can't when they're when they're menstruating, they can't really go into worship, can they?
No,
They can't go into.
but they're seen as unclean, aren't they?
They're seen they're seen as unclean. So there's still religion like that,
Yeah.
where women can't do certain things, and nothing against our Muslim viewers, if the Muslim viewers out there, but I know that, and this is not anything I'm saying disrespectful, that I think when they're fasting as well, the women they're excused from doing the fast as well. If there's so therefore, I don't know the reason why they do that, but I don't know whether it's because they think it's unclean or what. It'd be good to know why women are not allowed to
participate,
participate.
in that. So that, if you know the answer, that would be great. Share it.
in that. But I know in some cultures still, religious festival, women are not allowed to participate.
Well, in some churches as well, women aren't allowed to speak.
Well, this
You know,
is
you
again,
can't preach as a woman or whatever. You should be silent in church. So we've got that as well. And women can't wear trousers. Women can't wear makeup.
Some churches,
all these things. You have all that sort of stuff as well. And what is that? Why is that reason? Is it because they'd be seen as a temptress if they're wearing makeup?
Yeah, we don't know.
Or is it that it's seen as a vanity thing? What's the reason for that? So it's interesting, isn't it?
It is interesting.
Very interesting.
Well, I think we've more or less covered lots of things that we needed to talk about.
Well, one more thing that we talked about menopause, and I know we like at my workplace where I used to work, they've got a menopause policy.
Really?
Yeah, they've got a menopause policy because they felt that women were struggling, and they wanted to make sure they were aptly supported, and that's the council that was. So but I think when you have policies in place, people can still duck under the radar because you have to go further than that. You have to make sure that probably when you're doing supervision, you've got something in there about talking to the woman about, how are you coping? We know you're of that age now, and how you're managing the work, and taking that on board to think, okay, I know you struggled here, and let's support you a bit more because we know that you're going through that stage. There needs to be that much more happening, but I don't think they've got that place as yet.
Yeah, well, they haven't got anything like that where I work.
Yeah,
at all. But I think really they do need to reinforce that, where they do have those things in workplaces, because like you said, women do struggle with a lot of things like that, where they become forgetful, or they get really hot, and once the hotness comes, it's like, oh my God, you don't even,
you go a bit crazy, don't you? Very confused.
You get a bit crazy. All you want to do is strip off your clothes, and it's terrible. You can't even think. So I think they do need to bring that in.
Another question, and this is for viewers as well. If you think you have the answer, that would be great to just hear what you've got to say. We're talking about menopause. Do you think that that black women go through menopause differently to white women?
That's a good one. I wonder.
And I think that would be an interesting question. Do you think there's a difference? And if you do, what is it?
How do you think we'll ever know that?
Well, I think the thing for me, I think, is that it will be in terms of how we're treated as women, right? I think that black women will be treated differently to our white counterparts who are going through menopause, because we are always seen as the beast of burden. Our pains aren't considered, right? There's stereotypes about us as black women, so we will always go under that radar. Where there's, as white women, there's stereotypes for white women, but not with the color aspect. So we get double jeopardy. So if I say I'm confused and I'm struggling, they might say, "Well, Maureen's just lazy." You know what I mean? And she's not as clever as us because you know her brain's a bit smaller.
Oh dear, I don't think. Come on, I don't think they'll say that, Maureen.
No, but you know, there is people who believe that.
Right.
There are people who believe that. Do you understand me?
That
So
is terrible.
so I think
I hope I never come across people that think that and judge me that way.
In certain places, that does happen, and that does happen, and that is a reality. You know what I mean? So my journey having menopause will be different to a white woman having menopause, because people will come out. I think she will have more support than I would get.
We need to cry more.
Yeah, well, you see, I need to cry more, because you see, that's another
need to
thing
cry
as
more.
well.
We bear the pain and grunt.
There you go. So we can go invisible because we don't open up and say, "I am struggling, I'm confused."
Yeah, we don't do
We
that.
will push on.
Yeah.
We don't cry.
Yeah, we don't.
You know, we cry internally. Trust me, we cry internally buckets, but we don't cry out.
Yeah.
Very rarely. And as a result of that, we're seen as having no emotions, always stronger than we really are. Don't get me wrong, we are strong, but we have pains too.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's always seen. And I think that would be the difference for me with how we struggle with menopause, or how we deal with menopause, and our counterparts deal with it. I think it's different in that way.
Well,
but that's my spec.
Yeah, well, they talk about equality and diversity in that way. So maybe that's what they need to put into force then. Really, at the end of the day, because you can't just look at somebody and say they're not going through something because they're not crying, or because they're not really. If somebody come and tell you, you know.
But it's for people to understand. We got to learn, right, to sit down and walk in another person's shoes. Don't presume you know it, because you're a human being, so I know what you're going through. No, there's more to me than just that. You got to know who I am as a black woman. You got to listen to my story. Don't critique it per se and says it can't be true. You've got to just listen to my story, because I'm not going to lie to you, and just accept it.
Well, you should know menopause is just menopause, and it doesn't matter what colour you are, black, white, pink. Once you reach a certain age, menopause is menopause. And if you're going through that, they should understand that it shouldn't be a colour issue at all, or that you're not feeling anything. It should just be menopause is menopause. Yeah. So I can't really see the big deal. But like you said, if these things do take place, I think it's terrible.
Yeah. It's terrible. And it does need to stop.
Wow.
So, but it's just food for thought, isn't it?
People who are in companies, remember us, because we do go through menopause as well. And we feel the same thing as a person who is white.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because menopause is just menopause it doesn't matter who you are, black, white, Asian, Chinese, we're all women. And we all go through that same thing once we reach a certain age. Yeah.
So, as Womanhood, we've tried to cover a vast range of things, issues, like we talked about puberty, adolescence, adulthood, and aging. Yeah, we spoke about development stages. We spoke about social media and the impact of that. We spoke about how people's identities and how media influence and peer influence and words You know, unchoice words can have a great impact on
impact.
young, impressionable
That's
minds
right.
of young women. You know what I mean? And we talk about people, just be aware of your young women around you, and tune into them. Show them that you
Yeah.
want to listen, show
And
them that you're available, you know
and
what I
give them
mean?
and support them.
And support
And
them.
support them
And
'cause
it's
they
not
need
just,
that.
yeah, and it's not just a parent role to play. It's everybody's role. Everybody, even a stranger in the street, you know. I remember, this is just me because I'm talking to everybody all the time. Some of my friends get cheesed off with me, and my sons will say, "Do you know that person, Mom? Do you know that person?" But sometimes I'll see someone in the street and I'll make a comment. I'll probably tell a young girl, "You look so beautiful."
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know,
She does,
"You look so
She does all the
beautiful."
time.
You know, "Oh, I love your shoe." And it's like, what? You see the whole of their countenance change because they're not invisible.
No.
They're not invisible, and that's something we need to change. There's too many people walking around who are invisible. We need to change that, and we have the power to change that. Our
As
circle of
women.
influence, you know.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, women, I see you.
We see you.
We see you. Thank you,
Yeah.
sis.
No,
No, you're
we,
supposed to say, "I see you too."
yeah. We see we see
Yeah,
you
we see you
because that's who we are
because that's
too.
who we are.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
were the women of yesterday, but we're still the women of today.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, and we're just saying to men as well, see us, value us from our various stages. Treat us well. Treat us well. And I tell you, you will grow from that. You'll get the best. You will be the best. So that was me, Maureen, and my
me,
sis,
Chris.
Christine. And we were Y-ZUP.
Y-ZUP.
Yeah. See you next time.
Bye.